Okay, so we should be on. Hi, everyone. If you're joining, thank you so much. This is Jennifer Hernich, and she is such an amazing human. She's here to share um, her incredible story and her transformation with all of us. I'm just going to, while I'm checking to see if this is broadcasting, Jennifer, would you like to share anything about like what your family or your age of your kids or something like that? Let us know something about you.
I am a mom of two small kids. One just turned one, actually, my daughter Amelie, over the weekend on Saturday. And then my son Liam just turned three at the end of June. So I've got a 1 year old and a 3 year old.
And your hands are so full, and you still managed to make it through Awaken Motherhood Program and work a full-time job and work on your relationship and your marriage and create transformation on so many levels. So
That's why I
um,
did you.
you're a total firecracker. Okay. So we're just going to dive right in. And if any of you have questions about questions for Jennifer or for me, and you would like to put those in the live chat, then I'll just be checking. I think I can see some of them come up. Oh, good. Yeah, I can see the comments, but I can't see who's I can't see who's leaving the comments on this app, but that is okay. So let us know what your questions are. Yay. It's totally working, someone says. I'm so excited for all of you to watch and just really the purpose of this interview, the larger purpose of this interview is really for all of you women who are feeling that life is so hard, or you're feeling beat down, or you are struggling to find any kind of balance. Jennifer is coming on to share with you where she was before and where she is now. And this interview is really meant to inspire you about what is possible for you. It's not just a select few who get to be happy or just some natural inborn gift, happiness, but it really is something that we can work at and create for ourselves. So thank you so much for being here. We just said we were going to start and dive in with what did it feel like for you before you signed up to work with me? And I can remember that first conversation. What would you like to share with us about that?
So, what it felt like for me before the program is I was on the Hot Mess Express. Luckily, I think your webinar popped up in my Facebook feed, and I was like, this is the answer. This is what I've been looking for. So it was back in May. I had just started back to my job a couple of months prior. I had a 7-month-old daughter, and I was in a state of overwhelm and anxiety. And I was physically, emotionally, spiritually broken. I had thought that I was going to have it all together, and I had set the intention for this year to focus on health and humility, and so I got a big dose of both of those. And I had, let's see, there was a restructure at work that had hit me really hard, that had knocked me off kilter. I broke my ankle a couple of weeks later. I remember telling you that I was attracting speeding tickets from the universe. I was getting them like hotcakes. And
Literally racing. You were literally racing around trying to catch.
I was racing around, and I just felt like I was being pulled in so many different directions that I was just kind of getting beat up by the waves, I guess. And so I was worried that I was struggling in my marriage and as a mom and with my career. And so I really felt like I had just hit a low point that I'd never been in, and that I was in a total midlife crisis
Mm,
and
okay.
depression too.
And I remember you were unable to walk when we first spoke, and you were saying this is like the physical manifestation of everything that's going on inside. I just feel I feel disabled from being able to do any of the things I want to do, and I'm literally like nursing a baby and working on my laptop and
Yeah.
uh, trying to keep life going.
Yeah, totally out of control.
That was in that was an intense sort of peak experience of everything coming at once. And then I just want to kind of fast forward and shift to look at, okay, so here you are now. You've graduated from Awakened Motherhood. Maybe how long ago was it? Maybe a month, or not that long ago, a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're coming up on another alumni call. So probably a month ago. And program's 12 weeks. So you've been dialing in this transformation for a couple months now. So what is it like now? And especially specifically like the professional obstacles you were facing. Mm-hmm. And would just love to hear about what's opened up for you since you did this.
So since going through the program, a lot of things have shifted for me. I was in a state of focusing on the negative. I had a very limited perspective. I felt like I was constantly emotionally hijacked. And I remember at one point, you were just trying to get me to just list everything that I'm grateful for. And I was just like, I can't even do that right now. And so I had to get to a place of where I was trusting that I was going to be okay and get through the process, mm-hmm. and take baby steps and being very gentle with myself. And going from a state of just trying to survive minute to minute, now it's really been a complete transformation. And not to sound overly, eager or excited about it. It's hard to explain, I guess, if you haven't gone through it. But I do feel a sense of calm and peace and confidence. I have an abundance of time, an abundance of energy. And, even just in my professional life, I feel like I'm wildly successful now at work. And so I'm continuing to do some really exciting, meaningful, high impact work. I've had job offers flooding in. I think I've had 5 job offers so far. And just to be back in the driver's seat and have choice, and to say, okay, well, what is it that's going to make me happy? And what does success look like? And how am I defining success? And it's not just at work, but at home too, because the one thing that I had put on my vision board before I started the program was that I really wanted to have an incredible, fun-filled, harmonious relationship with my family, because it was anything but at the time. And now I can say that that's really the thing that's front and center. I feel like I've done so much work on myself that things really did reorganize around me, with my husband and with my children specifically. And so it's just a different state of being.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. I love, so I know your story. I know all the details of it. So I'm just kind of trying to listen. And you guys, I see a great question coming up, like examples of overwhelm. Because as we're talking, I'm realizing, it is, from the outside, it is really difficult to visualize and like really key in on what exactly was going on and how is that not going on now. And so maybe it'd be good to go into a little bit of kind of just concretizing it a little bit. So example of overwhelm before, we could just look at family. I mean, there's so much there that everyone is struggling with until they really tune into their true self. What were some of the things that were off at home or that were tough about the marriage, or anything you feel comfortable to name or share? And if not there, we can talk about professionally, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, in the program, I actually focused a lot on professional because I didn't really want to go into the personal as much. But I realized that I just needed to open up and face what was happening. After my daughter was born, by having the second child, that's where I was like, oh no, I've really just thrown my family off kilter with these 2 kids. And what I realized is that my husband's overwhelm was showing up in ways that was really hard for me to experience. And it really felt like divide and conquer. We were just completely divided, overwhelmed with trying to get stuff done. And we were constantly lashing out, and there was resentment, and it was like a downward spiral. in the relationship. And I was like, we need to fix this. We've got to figure it out. And at one point he said he was going to be my therapist, and I fired him 3 times in the day. And I was like, no, like this really needs to happen. Something's broken, and we've got to figure out how to salvage this. And so
wasn't that about the time when he realized that you were going to have to invest in something to shift these patterns? He was like, I'll just do it. I'll just be your therapist. And then you called me back and said, it's not working.
Yeah, it's not working at all.
No good.
And even just that, getting strong in my vibration and saying, no, this is what's happening with or without you. And I don't want to do it behind your back, but this is what I need right now. And so it was a lot of trying to fix our relationship and to get it back on track where it was prior to having my second daughter. And then the other thing, too, that was happening a lot were power struggles with my husband and my son, having his 2-year-old meltdowns, screaming every night, not wanting to take a bath, and it just being chaos. And so I was trying to balance, do I not escalate the situation and allow him to handle it? But whenever I sit back, I was getting triggered and feeling like I was being complicit. And so I felt like I was damned if I do, damned if I don't. But I just needed to find some way to get the chaos and anger out of the house. And so that compiled with the mornings were very stressful for me, just trying to figure out how to get out of the house with 2 kids and to work on time and with the commute and everything. So, and with the breastfeeding and all of that. So those are a few examples.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what so many moms of young kids who are working out of the home are pushing against. There's an energy of like just pushing against it because I don't know how to do it better or how else to do it. So thank you for sharing that. And then, the flip side of that coin, you tuning into you raising your vibration and getting clearly connected to what you wanted and your power and your voice. And holy cow, a lot of things just shifted. And I love that you said, like, I was avoiding the family stuff for a while. You're super analytical. You're a researcher. You're in your head a lot. And it took you a while to really follow what I was saying in the beginning of like, just stop looking and just tune into you. And we're going to go that route and create a new avenue. And as soon as you did, then everything else kind of cracked open. And that's when your family stuff started to really align. So anything you want to share about what did align in your family or in your marriage, and what's it like now?
Well, it's just so funny that you say that, because I realized that it was hard for me to turn my energy in because I'm so focused on outward and information seeking and waking up to like read my horoscope and what's going to happen for the day. Or whenever you were saying, Jennifer, what emotions are you feeling? I had to go and Google, like, what's the wheel of emotions? Let me make sure that I'm getting it right. And so it's just stop seeking things, stop reading books and articles, and just take the time to go in and try to figure out, what's going on. And that only I have the answers. And so that was definitely key for me to kind of stop that seeking behavior and kind of go in and sit with it. And so you were saying, what are some of the
and I'll just add to just a reflection for you of that, like what that all boiled down to was you developing a really strong connection to your sense of true self and your intuition, because I see you as a highly intuitive, highly sensitive, and I mean, when I say sensitive, I mean in like the way that a priestess is super sensitive, a goddess is totally tuned in, like that is your divine feminine power. And there was a disconnect there. And I see that with so many women. As soon as you plug that in, that's like when the juice started flowing, and everything really has to come in through that channel. And so the question is then, like, what happened? What do you see now in your family that wasn't there before, that is a direct result of this work you did to tune into you?
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that, because you remember I had that really vivid dream of the snake, and I was scared, and I felt something kind of wake me up on my head.
Yes.
And so you were like, that's the divine feminine. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't know. And
then you hit your Google and you realized.
I'm Googling the
It's
snake
your
symbol.
inner power.
Yeah,
It's your inner power as a woman.
right.
Okay, so so some of the things that that you've shared that have just blown my socks off are about how your transformation flowed through your husband,
Yeah.
and that I would love for you to share anything about that so that people can relate. Because this is a question I get almost every time I'm talking to somebody on the phone who wants to know about my program. It's um, there's a deep-seated fear that they're going to lose their partner, or they're going to like elevate past what's possible for the relationship or outgrow it. There's like, I need to hide my light, because if I really own the fullness of who I am and have a voice in this relationship, I don't know what that means for our lives and our home and our kids. So will you say something about how you experienced
Yeah.
that?
And so I think there was a pattern that had been playing out for a while, and with the power dynamic in our relationship. And so as I was in the program, he wasn't excited about me being in the program. And so it was hard for me to kind of hold space. And so I had to be really clear on setting those boundaries. And, he was mocking it a little bit in the beginning. And there was one point, maybe a few months ago, where he was pretending to be me, and he was like, I'm very centered and I'm calm. And, and so like things started to come out in a joking way. But then over time, he continued to shift the way that he was interacting with me and with my son as well. Because I basically got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to repeat patterns from the past, and I'm not going to have us create a dynamic that's not helpful for anybody in the family. And so I need you to kind of write down your list of expectations, and I'll decide if I can meet those expectations. Because I think I mentioned to you before, we were out with a bunch of friends, and he had made even a comment that I was like another child to him. And so I was like, we're equal in this partnership. And so we need to love and respect each other. And so there was a lot of dynamics that shifted. And I was on the call whenever things kind of escalated one night on a Sunday night when we were on the call, and Liam was having a meltdown, and Amir was trying to take care of the kids. And then it just seemed like once it got really bad and we had to reorganize around each other, that's when we started figuring out how to move forward together. And so I realized that there was some baggage that I was bringing in, and he realized that there was some things that he had done. And at one point I told him, I was like, you've changed a lot. And he was like, about how much? And I was like, at least 70%.
That's huge.
Yeah. And
Did
so,
he see it?
well, and even the other day, he was talking to Liam, and he got upset about something. And then I saw him have a moment of awareness, and Liam had gone to the corner and was kind of sulking, and he shifted, and he didn't allow Liam's mood to affect him, and he remained the parent in the relationship, and didn't add more chaos onto the chaos. And then I told him, I was like, wow, that was really impressive the way that you just did that. And he was like, well, that's what happens when you put your husband in check, and so and he had even said just randomly the other day, I'm so blessed. And that's just not the language that he's used in the past. And so I got curious, and I was like, what do you mean you're blessed? And he was like, we've got these two healthy, beautiful children. And I was like, yeah, sometimes we've let things get lost in perspective. And it's really good that you're seeing that now.
It's so moving. I just love, I can't hear it enough times. I think it's so beautiful what happens when you get connected to your love and appreciation and your heart. That was a natural unfolding. And I just want to say for everyone who hears this, that is not something that you went and did. Like, there's no part of my program where you quote unquote work on the marriage. It's just woven throughout your inner work is the way that you shift and move the connections in your core relationships. And it's really a natural a flow, a natural ripple effect from that work you did to really sort through what's important to you. And instead of listening to the old voices and the old wounds or the old anxious or worrying thoughts, you started tuning into and creating new things. And when you did that, then he just came on board, which is so cool after a lot of resistance. And I think that's pretty realistic. I think that happens. I'm glad you mentioned that. Like often there is resistance. Like, what's happening? What are we reorganizing? And where are you? And what's going on? And you were very open about, like, this is happening. I am, and I'm here in love. This is where we're headed. And I just love that.
And it's funny because I didn't realize some of the beliefs that I was holding about him, like, oh, he's a grumpy guy and he's hard to love, but I'm going to do it, because I'm going to love him. And just some of the things that I was projecting onto him and trying to shift my beliefs from he hates my guts, I can't live up to his expectations, to no, he's really a hardworking, honest, fun guy. And so how can I focus on those things? And I remember in one of the calls I told you, I was like, I'm just going to go love the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Whether he loves it or not, I'm going to love him.
Whether he accepts it or not. That's what I'm committed to. I love that. And that's what heals. That commitment to love really is what heals. Yeah. And as you know, we work a lot in Awakened Motherhood with developing a really strong mindset. I know one of the things that holds us all back is the way we think about life. You said my beliefs about him or about our relationship were creating a limitation on what was possible for the kind of love you guys could have together. And so when you shift that, can you hear me okay? There's like planes and garbage trucks and automobiles.
Yeah, I hear you.
Planes, trains, and automobiles in my I left the window open. And so when you begin to learn how to hear what you're thinking and how to move what you're feeling and how to shift and work with thoughts in a way that aligns with your body and with your emotions, that's the magic. That's where the magic comes from.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I remember one morning going in after a call, and I had interviewed for a position down in Virginia, so we were going to relocate the family. And I was talking to him about it, and he expressed his concern. And I said, I see you, I hear you. And he was like, no, you don't. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not really listening and validating what he has to say. And that's important too. So it's not just about what's going to be right for me, but what's going to be right for the entire family in all of this.
Yeah, amazing shift. And that's a piece of you being able to, of your expansion. When you expand, and what I mean when I say that is like when you can hold more or tolerate more, it's because you are so certain of who you are. And when you got there, you got really solid in your foundation of who you are and what you wanted. Then you realize, like, I can hear him better. Mm-hmm. And that brought so much healing to you guys too. Wow, it's so beautiful. Someone said, I'm just going to love the shit out of him. Yes, it works like a charm. So you humbly glazed over the professional stuff. So just to kind of circle back to people who do feel really thwarted in their growth professionally or at work, I think probably like the biggest conscious reason why you did Awaken Motherhood, your conscious choice, the one you named and said, I want to shift this, is feeling like I'm just getting the short end of the stick at work. I'm so down about how these things are happening. It seems out of my control. Everything felt out of your control. Yep. And just last week we talked, and one of the biggest contrasts to me was you saying, I thought I needed to leave my job. I was desperate to jump out of it, like to leave, to move or whatever. And your husband was reflecting that to you and you were saying like, I don't care, I just have to go. It's awful. And that feeling of like going from that to settling into you and then realizing that you can be so powerful there that you can turn down 5, 6, however many, 10 job offers you've had in the last month.
Yeah.
Because you've already in 3 months created a role for yourself there that is what how does it feel? Like how did you do that? You're so happy there now.
Yeah. And it's so funny because so I started with just kind of stating the intention that I trust I'm going to be okay, because there was a point where I was like, every time I walk into work, I'm crawling out of my skin. I feel like I've lost my dignity, that life is unfair. How could this happen? This is crazy. And so that's where I was like, well, I did say I was going to focus on health and humility this year. So maybe this is part of the humility piece. And so I went from the intention of I trust that I'm going to be okay. And I was able to get past that to a state of I trust that I belong here. Because that was there was a sense of rejection and abandonment that had come up in me, and so that was again some of the old stories that I was playing out, and so I had to find a way to kind of peel back some of those layers and realize, no, I do belong here. And I think maybe you had said it before, kind of taking your foot off the gas, and so it was just about kind of letting go and not putting expectations on anyone or anything. I was doing a lot of forgiveness to the people that I was blaming in all of this and that I was feeling resentful towards. And so I just had to get to a space of saying, okay, so this is not my time right now. What is the work that I'm doing, and what can I do to continue to be an influencer in the organization? And so since then, I've actually been doing work that I didn't even comprehend that I would get an opportunity to do something like this. And
and you have people raving about it. I'll brag on you. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you're not boasting, but I know that people are coming up to you and saying, this is the best training I've ever had. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so it's been very humbling, and there's been some high stakes things that I've been a part of. And I think that one of the retreats that I facilitated before, normally I would have a lot of anxiety before I go in to do something. And so I think that even though I'm trying to squelch that anxiety, it kind of comes out in other ways. And I get really intense right before. And you had told me, just think about what it's going to feel like at the end and how great it's going to feel. And so every time before I would go into one of these meetings or some of these high stakes things, I would just get really clear on that. And, I would do my happy dance if I needed to. And it's so funny because I literally started living every day like it was my last, and just letting go and doing like really bold and fun and exciting things. I mean, there was one meeting where I went in to talk about our strategy for next year. And I sat down at an 8 a.m. meeting with the senior leaders. And I, at the end of it, started singing Mr. Rogers and putting on my sweater and my shoes and just walked out. And they were just, what just happened? And it's like,
you're so
doing me. I'm just doing me, And so
yeah, really owning who you are.
Yeah.
Owning who you are. I love so much watching everyone's, transition through the program is so different and so individualized. And I love one of the things that I saw in you was that your light just came on. It came on so big, and you just realized I don't have to apologize for who I am on any level. I can just own who I am, and from that flow my gifts to the world and enjoy the results of that, which I think is what you're really seeing and experiencing now. It is so inspiring. What do you think was the one thing before you went through this program that was really in, like, what, if you could say one or a few things, what was getting in your way of you having these results already or doing this on your own? What do you think was, what was the main obstacle?
I think that I was exhausted because I was trying to meet everybody else's expectations. And
Mm.
I felt like no matter what I did, I was never going to be good enough for my boss, for my husband, for my sister, for people around me. And so I was just trying to please people and do what I felt like they expected of me. And so I had to realize that it's only up to me. I belong to me, and I've got higher expectations of myself than anybody else will ever have. And so at the same time, I needed to kind of face some of those critical voices in my head that you're never enough. And so you remember whenever I told you, I kind of had that moment where I received grace and there was that tear that kind of rolled down my cheek. And I was like, that's not my, I put my sunglasses on and a tear rolled down. And I was like, where's this tear
Where did
coming
that come
from?
from?
Yeah. And I just felt like that was the moment where I had to realize to kind of have grace with myself and to give myself what I was looking for externally.
That is so huge. I can't even, I could just leave a long space so that everyone could digest those words, because that is everything. You just, that's the core of everything that changed in you, is what that, like where you're planting yourself, what you really do hold about yourself, what thoughts you hold, and what you do believe, and just how you're so rooted now, and um so powerful. It changes everything for all of us who do the work. So I just love that you share that. And we have a couple questions. I'm wondering if we should ask you a few questions before we let you go. Let's see. We did examples of overwhelm. Let's look at, did you know your true self before entering the program? So we talked about connecting with your true self, and that was, and discovering that you were going through life with a belief and a perception that you weren't good enough. And so nothing you would ever do was going to be enough. And then we talked about connecting to your true self, which is enough. So is that something that you knew about before the program, or you'd ever worked on before, or was this new in Awakened Motherhood?
Well, it's interesting because I do leadership development for a living, right? And so I feel like I have a lot of tools at my disposal, and I'm in the classroom a lot. I do a lot of self-reflection. And so I felt like I had a pretty solid self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I was beginning to explore this year was more of that spiritual path, I think. And so it was, again, moving away from kind of the analytical cognitive piece and more kind of the inward journey, but in a different way, if that makes sense.
Out of the mind. Out
Yeah.
of, yeah.
Yeah. So um, I do feel like I've I've had exposure to a lot of tools, and I'm always trying to work on myself, and I think maybe that's a hindrance sometimes too, right? So that you're never good enough. So just keep trying to get better and get better and get better. But at what point are you doing that for? What's the higher purpose? Is that to please others, or is that really to try to go deep and connect to your higher self?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so it's, for some people, awakened motherhood is a really deeply spiritual experience. That's just because that's something that's there in them, and they're
Mm-hmm.
wanting it, and so they're creating that. For others, it is not so much a spiritual experience. It's very much a body-centered, emotional, and mental experience, and
Mm-hmm.
that is powerful as well. I love what you created, in what how you, you're a big manifester. You really you really dialed in those tools for creating your reality and took it seriously. These were things that you were playing with before. And the thing that falls flat for people, I'll just say, is that until you are connected with your true self and you know what you want, and you're learning how to then have that, how to allow that into your life, which is, these are pieces that we teach. Until you learn to clear everything in the way of that, then you can try to keep creating what you want, but you just chase your tail. You go in circles because you're contradicting yourself on all levels. If you want something amazing, but you really believe you're not good enough, it just can't come in, right? That job cannot evolve. The offers won't roll in because you can only attract what you truly believe in a really crystal clear way. If you have a contradiction in your belief system or your feelings about yourself that you haven't worked on and cleared yet, then you're pretty much stuck. So that's the piece you were really so successful with, clearing and clearing and clearing, so that you could see how you wanted to feel. That's such a key piece, how you really wanted to feel in your success, and acknowledgement from others and all of that you're getting now.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was definitely in a low vibration whenever I started this. And I know that you've talked about is it the circle of fortune, I think, and understanding like how you kind of go around.
Oh yeah, that must be a Google term. But for what I talk about, I don't know that there's no, I just made it, I see it in my mind. I don't know if there's anyone's named it, but I'm sure other people talk about it. But how healing and growth happens in a cyclical pattern, or kind of concentric circles. So we start in the middle, and then we grow out.
Yeah.
Expanding, and we keep moving past our junk. And the more we learn, the more solid we are when we come past it again and go, I know what to do this now. Oh my gosh, there's a new level of belief here that I'm ready to hold and buy into, and that's true for me. So from here, your life is just going to keep getting better. It's not that you won't have bad days, or we talk about this a lot, that it won't all be rainbows and butterflies, or people will never get sick and cranky, but you know what to do, and you know how to bounce back, and you are resilient, and your vibration is up, and you're feeling good. So
yeah. And I think just going back to that question when they were saying, did I know my true self before? I think I've always kind of thought of myself as a chameleon, and it's like, I'll be who you want me to be. And so I think that this program has really taught me to protect my energy and to get really grounded and centered in my energy, because I think that a lot of what I was doing was getting caught up in the things that are happening that are out of my control in the political arena around the world. I was getting, really depressed and like empathizing with people in Syria. And, I talked to you about Anthony Bourdain and like, how can this be happening? And so what I've noticed is I would just kind of be a sponge, or just like have my energy just kind of too far out there. And so I've learned to contain it more. And so that has really created more of a true self that I think that I didn't have before, because I always felt like I was a sentient being. But then I would just absorb negativity or things that were just exhausting to me. And so, I feel like I've got more tools to kind of help with that.
That's so rich. And I feel like people are going to need to listen to this a few times to really be able to take in what you're saying, because it's so deep and so layered. It is difficult to have these conversations. Even for me, I've been doing this work for a very long time, but for me to really be able to, for us to somehow try to describe the depth of what you have created in a really short span of time, when so many other resources that you've tried were just piecemeal and not really driving you to the core of being able to shift what was missing for you, what was off for you. So just aligning with the truth of who you are and letting the rest go, and deciding that it's really important to be connected to you, and more important than being likable changing yourself for anybody else. These are just huge life-changing concepts. So I'm just so appreciative of you sharing today, Jennifer. I want to thank you so much. If anybody else has questions, I don't want to keep Jennifer anymore because I know you have to go get your kids. So if anybody has a question, drop it below. We'll try to go back and just kind of go through and answer. And I'm so glad you all joined us. And for those of you who watch in the future, you can drop your questions too. We'll circle back. And I'm just so grateful, deeply grateful, appreciating you, Jennifer. I know everyone else is too. Give her so much love, you guys. This is the hot seat, and she is amazing for showing up just for the sake of love for what is celebrating her journey and what is possible for all of you on your journey as well. Hope you've all been inspired by this. So lots and lots of love to you, Jennifer. And I will see you soon on the alumni call.
I will be there. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, Jennifer.